Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges,
Excused.
Buckner, Coleman,
Let's do this.
Cutter, Senator Cutter,
Excused.
Danielson, Exum, Fields,
Excused.
Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Senator Gonzalez, Hanson, Henriksen, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer,
Excused.
Kolker, Senator Kolker? Thank you. Liston, Lundin, Marchman, Michelson Janae, Malika, Pelton B, Pelton R, Priola, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Smallwood, Sullivan, Van Winkle, Will, Winter, Zenzinger, Mr. President.
Here.
Senator Cutter.
The morning roll call is 32 present, 0 absent, 3 excused. We do have a quorum. Senator Gardner, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Mr. President. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Kolker.
Good morning. I move that the Senate Journal of March 21st, 2024 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Senate Services.
March 22nd, 2024, correctly engrossed Senate Bill 100, Senate Resolution 3. Correctly re-engrossed Senate Bill 11. Correctly revised House Bills 1074, 1096, 1118, 1122, 1131, and 1143. Correctly enrolled Senate Resolution 3, Senate Joint Resolution 15.
Committee reports.
March 21st, 2024, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1002 be referred favorably to the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1277 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with a recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 171 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation, and House Bill 1257 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with a recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. Committee on State, Veterans, and Military Affairs. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1097 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with a recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Bill 177 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with a recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Bill 178 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with a recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. And Senate Bill 176 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar.
Third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the titles of all of the bills on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1143 by Representative Catlin and Senators Winter and Pelton B, concerning construction bidding cost thresholds for Department of Transportation projects. House Bill 1122 by Representatives Duran and Pugliese and Senators Roberts and Winter, concerning civil protection orders for victims of domestic-related crimes.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the bills on the third reading of bills final passage consent calendar, which are House Bill 1143 and House Bill 1122.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all of the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, House Bill 1143 is passed. Co-sponsors. With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, House Bill 1122 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Hansen, Mullica, Exum, Kolker, Priola, Buckner, Michelson Janae, Cutter, Marchman, Coleman, Zenzinger, Smallwood, Henriksen. Please add the president. Third reading of bills, final passage. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 100?
Senate Bill 100 by Senators Roberts and Will and Representatives Velasco and Taggart, concerning commercial vehicle safety measures on Colorado highways and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 100 on third reading and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and to my colleagues bringing Senate Bill 100. I want to say thank you. I would argue that this bill is a representation of the best of policymaking and what we've been able to do over the past 3-4 days, work that the committee kind of stirred up some thinking and some engagement, and then that trailed on into conversations this week. The bill sponsors gave a couple additional days to engage and address the issues that were important to the motor carriers that, quite frankly, make sure our lives are the comfortable lives that we want them to be by virtue of bringing the things to us and taking the things from us in commerce that we need to have happen. It's fortunate that this bill was one of those where we could, in fact, engage in the best of policymaking, because the idea of creating spaces to put chains on trucks and identifying highways where it's appropriate to take action is something we can all wrap our head around and engage in a positive way as we shape policy. We encounter other things that deal with PFAS, for instance, chemistry in a way that none of us absolutely can possibly understand the details of that chemistry, and therefore it's really, really hard for us to figure out this amendment's going to help fix that bill and make this move forward in a positive way. Or there are other bills that is the clash of ideological thoughts, the idea of property rights and property ownership, and those are so hard, those bills of that nature, that are deep in the details of chemistry or high in the soaring ideas of philosophy and principles that are so hard for us to make adjustments on. So I just wanted to pause, say a few words, and say thank you. It's so nice, so good, so fun, quite frankly, when we can actually all wrap our heads around the details of some policy and make that policy better. So I'm grateful to the sponsors who led us down this path of great policy making. Amen. Led us down the path of great policy making on this Senate Bill 100, and I want to thank them for that. Mr. President, thank you for giving me the latitude to make some comments that were deep in the heart of this piece of policy, as you can clearly understand from what I've had to say. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Minority Leader, please just speak for yourself. Some of us do understand chemistry. Will the clerk please add Senator Bridges to the roll and mark Senator Will's tie as very groovy? The motion is the passage of Senate Bill 100. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle.
Not as good as yesterday's time.
Baisley. Minority Leader Lundin. Or no.
Look at them Peltons over there. Look at them.
Smallwood.
Look at them Pelton twins.
Pelton B.
You got Janice.
Pelton R.
Yeah, yeah, he's good.
With a vote of 27 ayes, 6 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Bill 100 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Priola, Janal, Jaquez Lewis. Marchman, Hanson. Please add the president. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1131?
And Perry will.
House Bill 1131 by Representatives Lukens and Velasco and Senators Roberts and Will concerning local college districts.
Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 24-1131 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to note, we did have matching ties on yesterday, but I could not find one to match him for today, so I apologize for that.
I do prefer this one over the
Larry can
Wolverine.
get you one. Larry can get you one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do think former Minority Leader Holbert does have that tie, though. See no further discussion. The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1131. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Bill 1131 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Michelson, Janay, Jaquez Lewis, Priola, Winter, Cutter, Exum, Buckner.
I like the tie.
Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1096?
House Bill 1096 by Representatives Young and Lukens and Senators Kolker and Marchman concerning the enactment of the School Psychologist Licensure Interstate Compact.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move HB 1096 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1096. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Rich, Minority Leader Lundin, Smallwood, Liston, Pelton B, Pelton R, Gardner, Will. With a vote of 23 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Bill 1096 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Hanson, Exum, Majority Leader Rodriguez, Winter, Buckner, Priola, Michelson, Janay, Jaquez Lewis, Sullivan, Bridges, Zenzinger, Janal, Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1118?
House Bill 1118 by Representatives Marshall and Joseph and Senators Roberts and Gardner concerning authorization for the Attorney General to operate a district attorney's office due to a vacancy to the extent allowed by an executive order of the governor.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1118 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1118. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Pelton R.
That's always two.
With a vote of 31 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent to excuse, House Bill 1118 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Simpson, Hanson, Priola,
1074.
Will, please add Senator Malika as a co-sponsor on House Bill 1118. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1074?
House Bill 1074 by Representatives Armagost and Duran and Senators Janal and Gardner concerning specifications for the offense of aggravated cruelty to a law enforcement animal.
Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1074 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1074. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent to excuse, House Bill 1074 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Roberts, Malika, Smallwood, Liston, Pelton R., Minority Leader Lundin, Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, Rich, Majority Leader Rodriguez, Winter, Bridges, Zenzinger, Jaquez Lewis, Cutter, Priola, Buckner, Michelson Janae, Coleman. Please add the president.
Chris,
Did you raise your hand on that
you co-sponsoring? Big law enforcement dog?
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Senate Rule 21C, I move the Senate grant leave to the Joint Budget Committee to meet while the Senate is in session.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve in subcommittee to hold consideration general order, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in the committee of the whole for the consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, and Senator Coleman will take the chair.
Committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1056?
House Bill 1056 by Representatives Frizell and Marshall and Senators Hansen and Colker concerning property subject to a property tax lien and in connection therewith, modernizing statutes related to the issuance of a treasurer's deed for property subject to a property tax lien to align with the federal Supreme Court decision.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1056 on second reading and the Finance Committee report.
To the Finance Committee report, Senator Hansen.
Thank you, members. We made a few small changes in the Finance Committee around reporting and the deadlines. Urge adoption of the report.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of the Finance Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And the Finance Committee report is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L007?
L007.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move L07 to House Bill 1056.
To the amendment, Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Members, this looks like a long amendment. It's actually one change in a date that has to be repeated in several different places in Title 37. But of course, anytime you change one letter in a section, the entire section has to be reprinted in the amendment or the bill, which is why this looks like a very long amendment. It's actually very short. We're just making sure we've got the right dates that line up across Title 37 so that Colorado can be in compliance with a recent Supreme Court decision around seizure of properties after a tax lien is due, and urge your adoption of L7.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L007. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L007 is adopted. To the bill. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1056. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1056 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1098 until Monday, March 25th.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1098 until Monday, March 25th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1098 will be laid over to Monday, March 25th. The clerk, please read the title of Senate Bill 81. Oh, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 81 to the end of the calendar.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 81 to the end of the calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 81 will be laid over to the end of the calendar. Would the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1081?
House Bill 1081 by Representatives Amable and Catlin and Senators Roberts and Pelton B concerning regulation on the sale of sodium nitrite.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1081.
Proper motion. There's an amendment of the desk. Would the clerk please read L001? Senator
L001
Roberts.
amend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L001.
To the amendment, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is very simple. It adds one word to make it say that any aggrieved individual has a cause of action instead of any individual. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Senator, for discussion, the motion is the adoption of L001. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L001 is adopted. To the bill. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, very humbled to bring forward this bill, House Bill 1081, with the good senator from Sterling. This is about preventing unnecessary suicide in our state by limiting the access of a very deadly poison that is too readily available, especially to vulnerable people struggling with mental health, and unfortunately is being advertised as an easy way to harm oneself and take one's life. Sodium nitrite has valid uses in curing meats and preserving food, but the way it's being sold currently in Colorado and across the country is far too easy for young people who are struggling with mental health and all ages of folks struggling with mental health, and it's being advertised on the internet as an easy way to take your life. This bill puts in some reasonable guardrails that ensures that pure sodium nitrite can only be sold to valid commercial purposes, and that honest and accurate labeling is put in place for everybody else to know how dangerous this chemical is. We had some incredibly compelling, sad testimony in committee on this bill. This bill is driven by a family and a father in my district who lost his son 2 years ago at the age of 17 after he purchased sodium nitrite on the internet, and it arrived at his house 2 days later, unmarked, unlabeled, and undisclosed to his parents what was about to happen. This is an incredibly important bill, a very personal bill. Would appreciate your support and really do thank the good senator from Sterling for joining me on this common sense, reasonable way to prevent tragedy in our state.
Any further discussion? We do have one more person that would like to speak, Senator Michelson Janae.
Hi, friends. I come because this is an extremely important bill, not only in Senator Roberts' district, but I was also approached by a parent in my district who lost their son to sodium nitrite. It is a very serious problem, and it's $13.95. The good senator from Fort Collins looked it up while we were in committee. And you can just take 2 tablespoons and that's it. You're done. We need to talk to our children about this. We need to make sure they're not ordering this, and we have to vote yes on this bill.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1081. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1081 is adopted. Will the clerk read you the title of House Bill 1033? Sorry about that.
Yeah, can do that.
House Bill 1033 by Representatives Snyder and Velasco and Senators Cutter and Haggis Lewis, concerning the needs of an individual with an animal during an emergency and in connection therewith, strongly encouraging that emergency management plans address the needs of an individual with an animal during an emergency and that local governments make certain information publicly available relating to an individual with an animal during an emergency.
Senator Haggis Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1033 and the accompanying local government and housing report.
To the Local Government and Housing Committee report, Senator Haggis Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did a couple of things in local government and housing. We did an amendment to give animal facilities the ability to deny a certain animal if there was an issue with that pet. And then we also actually defined what kind of pet could be taken into the shelter during an emergency.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of the Local Government and Housing Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Local Government and Housing Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill comes out of the Wildfire Interim Committee, and we learned a lot, as always, during our wildfire field trips and meetings about the obstacles people face in during a wildfire and some of the things the community needs. Pet owners really, one thing that was fascinating was that pet owners really don't have a clear path or a cool place where they can safely take their pet. A lot of people might be able to afford a hotel room, but not everyone can. So it's really important that we provide places. This bill just urges local governments to communicate on this and provide a shelter that will take pets so that we can encourage those homeowners to leave during a wildfire and keep them and their pets safe.
Senator Haggis Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to add over 1,000 pets died during the Marshall Fire, and we believe that this bill can help make sure that we have plans that will save our dogs and cats. And if I can add, this is the perfect bill for this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The perfect bill. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1033. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1033 is adopted. Slight correction, we passed House Bill 1081. I said 1091 on the last bill, so just correcting for the record. We passed House Bill 1081 before we just passed adopted 1033. Will the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1062?
House Bill 1062 by Representatives Evans and Tatone and Senator Priola concerning administrative inspection warrants for Metropolitan Sewage Disposal District.
Senator Priola.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Members, I move House Bill 1062. There is no committee report.
Any further discussion on 1062? Seeing none. The motion is the adoption of House Bill 1062. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1062 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 81?
Senate Bill 81 by Senator Cutter and Representatives Kipp and Rutenell concerning measures to increase protections from perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl chemicals.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 24081 and the BLT committee report.
To the BLT committee report. Senator Cutter.
In the committee, we removed we had a prohibition beginning in 2032, and we removed that piece. Made a few other adjustments, including taking out, removing cleaning products from the bill.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of the BLT committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the BLT committee report is adopted. To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everyone deserves to breathe clean air, drink water, and eat food that is free from chemicals. PFAS contamination is costly to our resources and budget. In our drought-prone state, we cannot afford to be poisoning our precious water supply. Wastewater treatment plants are left holding the bag, and that means that local governments and us are responsible with cleanup and contamination, especially as the EPA moves to adopt protective drinking water standards that will apply to water providers. To date, it's estimated that over $51 million has been spent to clean up Colorado. So I've been working on this issue for a few years, and we want you to know we worked diligently with stakeholders. There's many issues with PFAS and the ability to take them out of products, and we recognize that. It's not as easy as just making the, telling them they have to. There's a lot that goes into it. So we worked for weeks and months, I would say. We worked with stakeholders to make any possible reasonable concession that we could in recognition of some of these difficulties, but also, trying to balance the fact that we do need to take care of these chemicals and begin to move in that direction. So I hope I can gain your support. Can I get a pause for a minute?
We'll take a brief senatorial 5. Senate will come back, and we have a member of the desk. Will the clerk please read L18?
L18, amend the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report dated March 12, 24, page 1, strike line 10, and substitute quote page 4 of the printed bill, line 5, strike quote
Senator
20
Cutter.
CI.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've done a lot of things in this amendment, trying to address multiple industry concerns. We have clarified that cookware does not include food equipment intended for use in commercial settings for the Restaurant Association and some small business groups. We have clarified about, for vets and the agricultural community, some language around, apparently they use PFAS in veterinary settings and applications, so we clarified some language for them. We removed some deadlines based on feedback from several industry groups, just to make it easier for them to adapt. Lots of people do want to move in this direction, so we're trying to be reasonable about that. And we have adjusted outdoor, some issues around outdoor apparel per the request of outdoor apparel companies. So one more thing, we did one more thing on that. We made another tiny tweak to that to, again, clarify something for vets. So we ask for your support.
And Senator Cutter, please move L18.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I move L018 and ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L018. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L018 is adopted. There is another member of the desk. Will the clerk please read L019?
L019, amend proposed floor amendment, parens SB 01L18, close print page 1, line
Senator
3
Cutter.
and 4, strike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a little bit of confusion about, we tried to make a little clarification about fabric treatment in this section, and it was, in the previous amendment, and it was simply a clarification. So we don't want to confuse people, though, about the fabric treatment, and so we took this out, and we just took that out, and that should address, we believe that addresses the concerns that were brought to us by the solar industry. So ask for your support on that. And oh, go ahead.
Oh, please go ahead.
That's all.
And Senator Cutter, please move L19.
So I move L019 to Senate Bill 81.
Any discussion on L019? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L019. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L019 is adopted. There's a member of the desk. Will the clerk please read L020?
Yeah.
L020, amend printed bill, page 5,
Senator
line
Cutter.
6.
I move L020.
That's a proper motion. Tell us about L020. Senator Cutter.
So this just exempts a narrow exemption for life vests, personal flotation device made for the health and safety of the user, so that, that seems like an important use of PFAS, and we ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L020 is adopted. To the bill. Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you can see, we made a lot of amendments. Hopefully that'll address any concerns, lingering concerns. There may be a few things that came up just very, very recently. If we have not addressed everything here today, we have pledged to stakeholders that will continue to talk to them about anything that might be reasonable to adapt. Our goal here is, again, I want to just make it clear that my goal here is to not to harm business or make it difficult for them. We want to be in partnership with business in moving forward because many of them want to get rid of these chemicals in their goods, but it's just, they might need a little extra time or whatever. So we have pledged to continue working on this and carrying over to the House any lingering questions that have come up only very recently. So we've been working diligently on this bill for months and hope we have your support.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members, I sit on the Business Affairs and Labor and Technology Committee. And we heard this bill here a few days ago, and I can appreciate where the good senator from Jefferson County, right, Lakewood, is coming from. And I know that she's worked with some of the industry groups, but you have to realize that these fluoropolymer or PFAS as they're commonly called, are used in a wide variety of areas. And while she's tried to work with, the restaurant industry and the apparel industry, let me just give you some idea of, I'll say, the incredible uses that PFAS is used in, that it will be extremely difficult if this bill moves forward. It'll have a devastating impact on all of our lives. In the manufacturing area, for instance, PFAS is used in pipes, hoses, and storage tanks. In the automotive industry, you think of the hoses that are being used, and if we have to do without PFAS, it's going to be very detrimental. It's used in gaskets and valves and fittings and seals. 3D printing lines, heat transfer plates, in the printing area, lithographic printing plates, in the medical equipment area that affects all of our lives. You have electronic devices that rely on the high frequency signals, such as defibrillators and pacemakers and MRI devices. Cardiac devices. Also, in the medical area, the uses of PFAS in catheters and stents, needles, surgical patches, you name it. Dialysis equipment. It's just heart pumps, ventilators. Down in Colorado Springs, we have significant semiconductor manufacturing area. It's used throughout I won't bore you with all of the nuances, but it's used very extensively in the semiconductor area. That would have a devastating impact. And certainly last but not least, we have the telecommunications area that's used in all different aspects of telecommunications. So while I appreciate what the good senator from Jefferson County is trying to do, there are a lot of industries that would be tremendously adversely impacted if this bill were to move forward. I don't want to belabor things. I think a couple of my colleagues want to address some other areas. I'll come back, but I know that the good senator from Jefferson County, she's trying to do the right thing, but there are many industry groups that still have their serious concerns about this bill. And it's not just industry groups, other states, which I'll maybe let my colleagues touch upon, as well as overseas. They have attempted to go down this path and to supposedly do away with, with PFAS. And it just, it is so, it's used in so many different areas that if we try and do away with PFAS, it will have a tremendously adverse effect on our economy. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues, and respectfully, I would urge a no vote on Senate Bill 081.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much to my good colleague for his concern and comments about this bill. I want to be really clear. I don't believe anything that was mentioned is actually covered in this bill. We have done away with the 2032 ban, which would have covered a lot of those products. We have narrowed the bill to cookware, menstrual products, apparel, ski wax, and dental floss. Very specific items that are in this bill. We have also exempted medical devices. I think you'll be interested in hearing this, that we've exempted medical devices. And also, we are not doing anything in this bill that has not been done in another state. So that means if you have to sell something in California or Maine or Minnesota that does not contain PFAS, it is highly unlikely you're going to create a new product to sell there only, right? So we are totally in line with the rest of the country and multiple states in moving forward with this policy. So I just want to clarify that for you, and we feel comfortable that we're following some other states and hoping for some movement, general movement in the direction to make things easier for industry to see and plan for.
Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the good senator from Jefferson County. I think it is certainly appropriate that we, as a state, move forward in defending our environment. We're Colorado, so Colorado needs to keep our air and water clean, especially our water, and so addressing these issues is appropriate. I have two concerns, having been on the committee, and I'm certainly no chemist. I'm not an expert in this area, but I get concerned when we attempt to address an issue as complex as this with statute, rather than entrusting our agencies like CDPHE, the Colorado Department of Health and Environment, with coming up with the right solutions so that they can, with their expertise, pardon me, narrowly focus the area. So here's, the statement was just made about we're not doing anything beyond what other states have done. I want to read what the reaction has been from a couple of other states that has made similar legislation. 2021, Maine passed a similar broad brush ban using PFAS chemistries, and a few of the problems that they've encountered to date include a broad stakeholder concern, which is what we're going through now. Over 500 companies and associations attending the first Maine Department of Environmental Protection webinar. To date, that webinar or that department has issued more than 2,400 extensions to companies for reporting PFAS due to a variety of reasons, including complicated supply chains for manufacturers to determine if PFAS is included, lack of an operational database for manufacturers to submit product information, limited lab capacity to within the U.S. To test for products, test for PFAS. Excuse me, I must have been breathing some PFAS, sorry about that. After hearing from constituents and stakeholders about the consequences, 8 pieces of legislation have been introduced in Maine to reform or amend the original statute. So quite a challenge there. Even in our friends to the west, California's own Governor Newsom vetoed a bill just 18 months ago that was similar to this one. In his veto message, he explained that California AB 2247 may be premature since the EPA is currently undergoing rulemaking to require reporting of PFAS, and that the bill is estimated to cost millions of dollars, would result in higher taxes and fees to pay for oversight resources. In his veto message, Governor Newsom said, quote, previously enacted single-product chemical bans, which also lack oversight, are proving challenging to implement, with inconsistent interpretations and confusion among manufacturers about how to comply with the restrictions. So the EU, who has also pursued these bans, put forth a proposed ban that has resulted in hundreds of industries submitting thousands of comments on widespread consequences and the lack of suitable alternatives. So in the testimony that we received from folks in the profession who create these products, they agreed that this ought to be addressed, that it ought to be much more narrowly focused. So as we're seeing from this more broader definition, that all the exceptions, the unintended consequences for medical devices and safety devices and so on, I just think we probably need to entrust our experts in the agency that has this responsibility, CDPHE, with moving forward with some pointed, directed, narrowed, meaningful restrictions on PFAS, and maybe look at statutory or legislation towards this after we've gotten smarter at it, after the nation's gotten smarter at it. However, let me leave a final. I applaud the effort. I want to have the environment clean, especially our ground and water. So I do appreciate the effort very much from my good colleague from Jefferson County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you very much to my good colleague from Douglas County. I want to reiterate that this is not, lots of the comments that he shared were not relevant because we don't have a disclosure requirement like Maine. We deliberately did not structure this with a lot of involvement from CDPHE and a lot of where they would have to be juggling all these requests. That's why we removed the 2032 ban so that we wouldn't have to burden them with that because there have been some requests backed up, and we don't want that to happen. We just want to keep moving forward as other states do this and moving forward in, as you mentioned, a very targeted way, which is what we've done with only several product categories. So thank you for those comments, and I hope we can count on you to support.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, members, I would remind everybody here in the Senate chamber, it was just 2 years ago that we passed another PFAS bill, House Bill 22-1345, and the provisions of that bill are just now going into effect through CDPHE. They have their 2024 action plan. And unfortunately, whether by design or just circumstance, is that some of the compromises that were made in that legislation is being undone with this particular bill. We've also heard that that supposedly that all the stakeholders were included in this bill, and that's not necessarily the case. I have heard, and I think a lot of us have heard, that there were, because the applications of PFAS is so far flung between manufacturing, as I mentioned, and the automotive industries, the medical industry, the semiconductor industry, that there are a lot of entities that were really caught off guard by this particular piece of legislation. Let me just kind of go over, if I may, to kind of give you some of the myths versus the facts as it relates to PFAS. There's the myth that all PFASs are bad. And quite frankly, that's not true at all. PFASs, as like I say, have been include many safe and commonly used substances in drugs like Prozac and Celebrex and numerous other drugs that are commonly used, and they don't have any negative impacts at all. Another myth is that these fluoropolymers are just like other PFASs, and unlike many other PFASs, these polymers, they do not dissolve in water and are not absorbed by the human body. Another one is that another myth is that the fluoropolymers break down into harmful PFASs, and the fluoropolymers do not degrade under normal environmental conditions. This is one reason that they are used in implantable medical devices such as heart stents and pacemakers. I would reiterate that there are a lot of industry groups that were caught off guard by this particular piece of legislation. They have deep concerns, and if this bill were to move forward even with some of the amendments, and I credit the sponsor for trying to work with the industry groups, but this still has a long ways to go. Once again, I appreciate what the good senator from Jefferson County is attempting to do, but this bill is just a bridge too far. And with that, I would urge a no vote on Senate Bill 081.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. President Pro Chair Tim. I rise ultimately to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 81, but I want to thank. We're going to metaphorically spank the bill. How's that? I want to thank the bill sponsors for the hard work they have been doing. This is a challenging subject. It involves complex chemistry, actually one carbon chemistry, two carbon chemistry, and the question of whether it's one or two makes a fundamental difference, but that's a whole separate part of the conversation. My core argument can be bound up in the phrase that has been attributed to Winston Churchill. It's been attributed to Dwight Eisenhower, both, I would argue, incorrectly. It's the phrase is, don't just do something, stand there. And that's my core argument right now. Now, that phrase has been misattributed. It actually was during the production of Irwin Shaw's mystery Broadway play, The Assassin. It was producer Martin Gabel, who actually, the ingenue, the lady playing the ingenue, the young actress playing the ingenue part, was wildly gesticulating. And the producer said, don't just do something, stand there, just wanting the actress to calm down and play the part more effectively. So I raise this not to demean in any way the important nature of this conversation, but to make a clear point. You are going to hear me make an argument here that you will rarely hear Lundin make, and that is the EPA, that's a government bureaucracy at the federal level, and CDPHE, that's a government bureaucracy at the state level, are working on this. And they are working on this at the direction of this very General Assembly. Less than 2 years ago, 22-1345 passed through here and told CDPHE, hey, this is really a big deal. These pair and polyfluoroalkylis are a health threat to us when we encounter them in an inappropriate way. Now, you heard the good senator from El Paso County talk about how they're actually used in some medicines that are actually physically ingested. So in all circumstances, in all ways, they're not a threat, but they can be a challenge and a threat in other ways. And they're insidious, they're persistent, they last forever. And so that's part of why we need to manage this. The challenge we have here as we're trying to figure this out is exactly what we experienced. We got Amendment 17, which was distributed a couple of days ago. Very grateful for the bill sponsor bringing that, getting it socialized, worked through. Then 18, 19, and 20. And Amendment 20 was like, hey, you know what? We just discovered personal flotation devices. We got to opt them out. We don't want people drowning because we're not allowing personal flotation devices to be created that use these pair and polyfluoroalkyl compounds in order to keep our lives safe. All right, so you got EPA at the federal level, you got CDPHE at the state level working on trying to figure out how to thread this needle. It's, I would argue, better lodged there where they, the hired officials of the state who are supposed to have the expertise to deal with these sorts of things, interacting in rulemaking and process making with the experts of industry who deal with these things on a constant basis. Heck, most of us struggle to say pair and polyfluoroalkyl. I mean, we can't even say the word, for heaven's sakes, and yet we're supposed to be writing policies here that say this goes, that stays, this goes, that stays, this goes, that stays. We're absolutely approaching it inappropriately, in my opinion. So I would argue, let's let the EPA and CDPHE work on this. Why? Because there are hundreds, hundreds of industries with thousands of products all of which are bound up in and important to the lives we live and the comfort that we expect, that are supported by the chemistry of pair and polyfluoroalkyl compounds. If you want to spend just a minute on this, I really find this fascinating. It's one of those matters of intellectual curiosity where you have to dig into this. And the distinction becomes very important as I understand it, and my understanding is very incomplete. I am a policymaker, an entrepreneur, former journalist, and a legislator at this point, not a chemist. So I am, believe it or not the right one to be figuring out the ins and outs to save this, toss that, keep this, toss that conversation. But this question of one carbon versus two carbon molecule atom makes a difference. One carbon definition is not scientifically appropriate and takes up an entire class of diverse chemistry with different properties. What sort of things are bound up in this? Let me dig in a little further to the chemistry of this and then come back and pick up why this matters so much. The presence of fluorine does not always indicate a PFAS. PFAS would be the broad definition of the pair and poly. That's different, poly meaning many, para meaning one. Excuse me. Excuse me, I was up listening to the Joint Budget Committee at 2 o'clock this morning, and that has left a frog in my throat. I want to pause while I've just said that to thank the good folks on the Joint Budget Committee who were, in fact, closing out the budget just before 2 a.m. this morning. Kudos to them, grateful that they did that hard work. The presence of fluorine does not always indicate a PFAS chemical structure, nor does it indicate that there is any reason. Oh, wonderful, a cup of tea. Thank you very much. Nor does it indicate there's any reason for concern about human environmental exposure. For this reason, the two carbon definition gets closer to prioritizing chemistries of concern. And so that's just one fundamental filter. One carbon versus two carbon, we need to take that into account as we address this. Now, why does that matter? Well, as of yesterday, in response to Amendment 17, which was the first of the 4 amendments we've added to this bill, and I am grateful for the efforts to improve, and I've made that very clear to the sponsors and continue to lean into that. Thank you for that. Thank you for the commitments to continue working on this as it moves to the second chamber, should it move to the second chamber. This new amendment sent up a flare. One of the industries that my colleagues on this side of the aisle who believe with a religious fervor at times in renewable energy and the renewables industry, we got a flare from that group saying it appears the bill's trying to cover consumer laundry treatments to increase waterproofing of things like Gore-Tex jackets, et cetera. However, Amendment 17 does, we believe, unintentionally cover complex treatments that are applied during the plastic molding processes that will have an unintended consequence and impact the renewable manufacturing industry. Colorado has, as we all know, a robust industry, including wind turbines, manufacturing centers in Brighton and Pueblo, and an announced domestic solar panel factory in the Front Range. This bill could create complications, not intended. The bill, as the sponsor has correctly said, is designed and intended to be narrow, addressing a few consumer products. But the reality is the people who understand chemistry so much better than I do, the people who deal with this all day long, every day as part of what they do, and to continue further, the people who work in the renewables industry, wind turbines, solar panels, they have said, oops, we're on the wrong path here. As amended now, this is going to create a problem. So, for me, I would say pause, back up, maybe we should take a clearer look at this. And that is one of hundreds of companies with thousands of products that are potentially affected by this. So a sensitivity to, an acknowledgement of, a willingness to actually think about this thing at the level of the molecule, one carbon versus two carbon, is critically important. And again, as policymakers, and it's very few of us, I don't think anybody's a chemist in here. We've got rocket scientists, we've got simple country attorneys with 2 law degrees, we've got advocates who make the world a better place for all of us by virtue of the sweat of their brow and the thought of their brains. But I don't think we have any chemists in here. The reality is this is incredibly challenging for us to create the environment that this should be. And therefore, I return to my core argument. Don't just do something. Our job should be to stand here. Let's let the folks at CDPHE, who are as close to expert in this environment that we have at our authority, they work for us, so to speak. They work for the General Assembly, they work for the people of Colorado. Let's let them. And then the harder to wrangle folks at the Environmental Protection Agency out of Washington, D.C. And as we all know, that like Nazareth, nothing good comes out of Washington, D.C. There's a scriptural reference there. Nothing good comes out of Nazareth. Nothing good comes out of Washington, D.C. would be a political reference. Let's let, even though I would argue it's dubious, handing it off to a bureaucracy, it's better than us saying, oops, on the fly as this bill leaves this chamber, we've remembered that we need to now exempt personal flotation devices because we don't want people drowning. Multiply that circumstance. Personal flotation device, we don't want to lose that because we don't want people to drown. Multiply that by 1,000 or 10,000 exceptions that we are not catching here today, but that could possibly get caught by CDPHE, that could possibly be caught by the Environmental Protection Agency as they develop policies in response to the laws we've passed. The most recent law impacting this passed less than 2 years ago from this very body, from this very chamber. Mr. President, or President Pro Chair Tim, thank you for listening to my comments. Thank you for your consideration. Colleagues, I hope that my argument has been compelling and interesting to you. I think, in behalf of the effort to don't just do something, stand there, we should vote no on Senate Bill 81, and I ask you to join me in that effort. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our esteemed minority leader. I felt compelled to come down since I have had quite a bit of chemistry. I had a minor in a BA in chemistry and before I went to pharmacy school. And the chemistry here is very clear. It's more than the EPA. It is, there are several agencies, and we have many studies that talk about the health effects of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, our PFAS combination products. If you look at the Agency of Toxic Substances and Disease Registries, it's very clear what is happening with PFAS in our bodies. We have increased cardiovascular risk in the United States, and Colorado follows that lead, and that's because the 4 different chemical groups, one of them is probably the main problem with PFAS, that's perfluorooctanic acid, that actually leads to increased levels of cholesterol. We also know that PFOS and PFDA actually lower antibody response. We know that changes in liver enzymes cause liver disease, and this is caused, again, by the perfluorooctanic acid. Here's a critical one that I think everyone in this body would care about, is PFAS has a very detrimental effect on pregnancy, on pregnant women. It causes pregnancy-induced hypertension. It causes preeclampsia. That's what's going on with these chemicals. It is very scary. And I commend the bill sponsors for taking the bill down to what all the other states are doing, because then you remove the administrative burden and the burden to businesses. This is a very, very common sense bill. And I just want to list 2 more factors because I think these are important. Colorado has seen an increase, it was just in the news last week, in colorectal cancer and testicular cancer, which again, those 2 cancers are being tied to perfluorooctanic acid. That is one of the chemicals in PFAS. So while some of us can't say the words, there are others of us that can. I can read the science. I realize this is a very smart move on Colorado's part to keep Coloradans safe, and I urge a yes vote on Senate Bill 81. Thank you.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much to the good senator from Colorado Springs for indulging me for letting me speak first, and then we'll be eager to hear your remarks. And I would also like to thank the minority leader for his thoughtful comments and applaud him for his pronunciation, because I cannot pronounce it, so I was impressed. I just want to briefly say that there's just a lot of misinformation. Re-clarify that this only deals with additional product categories, this bill. Building on what we did last time, no conflicts. It is a very thoughtful step forward. We're doing exactly what I'm hearing people say we should do, take a measured and thoughtful approach to move this forward. California has already banned PFAS in flotation devices. So really, they, again, to the earlier point, they can't be made differently for places all over the country, but in trying to be responsive to industry, we still carved that out in trying to be responsive to a request that came very, very late to the table. And the line that we took a line out that was giving the solar industry heartburn. So that has been addressed. Industries are, and I just want to add that industries are watching this all over the country. They know this is coming. Anyone who's worked in business knows that it's important to watch trends and to watch and to pay attention. So that is on them. They have been paying attention. Industries know about this. And anyone who's reached out, we have addressed their concerns or done our very best to address their concerns and have conversation. So I think that that's the only way that we can continue to move forward.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we're having a good, lively discussion. Maybe all of us can get a little bit of extra credit on chemistry. My good colleague from El Paso County touched upon it, and I'm sitting here thinking about it, that with the exception of my good colleague from Boulder County and possibly my good colleague from Larimer County, none of us in this chamber have a extensive background in chemistry and especially chemical engineering, which is really the gist of this bill. It's one thing to take a chemistry course or two, but when you're really applying a scientific chemical background to all of the different areas that these PFAS categories can be used on, it really is mind-boggling. And I would just remind everybody that, once again, I commend the good senator from Jefferson County for attempting to do this. We're all concerned. We want a healthy environment. Right now, though, with all due respect to the senator from Boulder County, you would think that PFAS is the most sinister, deadly chemical in the world out there, and that people would be dropping like flies. Personally, I don't see it. I've been around PFAS virtually all my life. Doesn't seem to bother me. And all of my friends that I know of, I haven't met a person so far that has died of PFAS. So if somebody can come up to me and say, this person absolutely died from PFAS, I would like to see it, with the exception of somebody ingesting it directly and each and every day. Once again, and I would remind everybody that the state of Maine, which was brought up, the state of Maine passed a similar bill to this just 3 years ago, and within a year they were already walking it back. They realized that there were flaws in their bill. and they didn't get it right the first time. And this bill is very similar to what the state of Maine. The state of California, it was mentioned that Governor Newsom vetoed a bill which was very similar to this just 2 years ago. Once again, I would also like to just take you through. I realize that we've made some exceptions, but the uses of PFAS are so extensive and exhausting out there that that would have a huge detrimental impact. I'm not going to go through every one, but just for our own edification, that where PFASs are used in the aerospace, it's in brake and hydraulic fluids, gyroscopes, turbine engines, the propellant systems, satellite instrumentation. In the automotive area, it's used in engine and steering system, engine coolers, electronics, fuel lines, the interior. Right now, there's probably all of us that in our own automobiles, we have PFAS. We're surrounded by that each and every day that we get into our automobiles, that there's PFAS around there. Looking around, I see a good, healthy group of my colleagues. I don't see you dropping and saying, my God, I've been exposed to PFAS. We need to outlaw it, here immediately. In the building and construction area, it's used in glass coatings. It's used in cable and wire insulation. In the electrical devices area, it's which I was commenting on, it's used in printed circuit boards, capacitors, protective coatings for liquid crystal displays, which we are all surrounded by, and that doesn't seem to bother us. In the energy area, it's used in solar collectors and photovoltaic cells, in windmill blades. There again, we want a clean environment, and it's used extensively in the solar and the wind, and it doesn't seem to bother us there. It's used in the glass industry, surface treatment, etching and polishing. The list goes on. In the medical equipment area. Gosh, I could read a whole litany, but I'll just go through a few. In the medical equipment area, electronic devices, they rely on the such as defibrillators, pacemakers, CRT, magnetic resonance imaging devices, video endoscopes, X-ray films and imaging, as I mentioned also catheters, stents, needles, blood transfer and artificial blood uses. In the optical area, glass fiber optics, optical lenses. In the pharmaceutical industry, it's used in packaging, ultra-pure water systems, filters for separation, formulation additives. It's used all over the pharmaceutical industry. It's used in our own homes, pipes, seals, pump parts, you name it. Printing, we have toner and printer ink. My God, for those of people who have probably replaced their ink in their own personal printers, you've been exposed to PFAS over after all these years, and we seem to be doing just fine. As I look, I don't see people falling over dead from changing, their printer heads and so forth. Semiconductor area, once again, I mention that because down in my home district, I think that my good colleague, the senator from El Paso County, has a very significant semiconductor facility in his home district. It's used extensively in the etching, cleaning of silicon wafers, vacuum pumps, circuit boards, you name it. It's used. So the point I make, colleagues, is that before we go down and we pass legislation that, quite frankly, most all of us are ill-equipped to pass public policy on scientific and chemical backgrounds that virtually none of us have an extensive background in, is that probably there needs to be further study and consultation with industry rather than just saying, well, we're going to outlaw this, we're going to outlaw this. There's some exceptions have been made. I commend the good senator from Jefferson County for wanting to try and get a handle on this, but this is far too complicated for everyone to pass one bill that is going to have such a huge detrimental impact on so many industries that affect us all. So with all due respect, I know her heart is in the right place, but this is not the way to do it. So with that, I would urge a no vote on Senate Bill 081, and I thank you for your time and attention. Thank you very much.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 81. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 81 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion of the committee is rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report. Order. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
March 22nd, 2024. Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 81 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1056 is amended, House Bill 1081 is amended, House Bill 1033 is amended, and House Bill 1062 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1098 laid over until March 25th, 2024, and retaining its place on the calendar.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Will the clerk please add Senator Kirkmeyer to the roll? The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Mr. Minority Leader, Gardner, Smallwood, Pelton B., Kirkmeyer, Liston, Will, Rich. With a vote of 24 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 81 is amended, passed in second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1056 is amended, House Bill 1081 is amended, 1033 is amended, and 1062 passed in second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1098 was laid over until 3/25/2024 and retained its place on the calendar.
Consideration of governor's appointments, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments on the consent calendar?
Member of the Middle Income Housing Authority for a term expiring September 1st, 2024, Kristen Stevens of Fort Collins, Colorado, to serve as a county commissioner, occasioned by the resignation of Hillary Cooper of Telluride, Colorado, appointed. Member of the State Housing Board, effective February 1st, 2024, for a term expiring January 31st, 2028. LaDon Sperling of Lakewood, Colorado, to serve as a Republican and resident of the 7th Congressional District, reappointed.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the appointments on the governor's appointments consent calendar, which include Lizandra Gonzalez of Thornton for the Colorado Commission on Higher Ed, and Jason Porch of Durango and Brian Turner of Canyon City for the Colorado Health Facilities Authority Board of Directors.
Is there any discussion?
I read the wrong one. Thank you, Mr. President. I have a correction. I was on the wrong page of the calendar. I move for the passage of the consideration of the governor's appointment consent calendar, which includes Kristen Stevens of Fort Collins to the Middle Income Housing Authority and LaDon Sperling of Lakewood for the State Housing Board.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the confirmation of all of the appointments on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the appointments are confirmed. Announcements. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. So members, today's the last day of Ag Week. I made sure to put on your desk a map of all the agriculture in Colorado. Almost every state has agriculture. This is what makes the $47 billion that this state produces in agriculture. I really appreciate everybody's indulgence. And all week we put something on your desk. We made sure it had source materials if you wanted to look at it. We talked about carbon sequestration that the grasslands provide. The other thing I'd like to point out is that the Eastern Plains, where I represent and the good senator from Cheyenne Wells represents, has a lot of the green energy that is out there. We are 7th in the nation for wind energy, 12th in the nation for solar energy, and most of that is in our districts. So we are really we are on the forefront of the energy discussions that happen in this room, and I really appreciate everybody just enjoying agriculture and the steak dinner. And here in a couple of weeks, Mr. President, I think we're going to be showing off some of our good hamburger that's going to be coming from the Eastern Plains as well. So I really appreciate everybody in here taking a look at all the information we've been putting on your desks, and thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, very important announcement. It is Massage Day at the Capitol. So if you want to get your massage, they will be in the old Supreme Court until 1:30. And now may I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. Tomorrow evening begins the Jewish holiday of Purim. Purim is a very, a lot of people like to call it Jewish Halloween because you get dressed up. But it is a very important holiday where the Jewish people were in Persia, and this crazy guy Haman wanted to kill all the Jews, and then Queen Esther got King Ahasuerus drunk. Thanks for the grogger on Haman. So Queen Esther got King Ahasuerus drunk, and he decided he doesn't want to kill all the Jews. And so we celebrate Queen Esther. And it is a big holiday for celebrating Jewish women, and it is an important holiday. It is so important that the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur, is Yom Kippurim, like Purim. That's why it's called Yom Kippur. It's Yom Kippurim, it's like Purim. So it's a very important holiday, and I'll be going to a gala, and after the gala, I'll be going to hear the Megillah reading. Please join us at Road of Shalom at 8 p.m. if you want to hear it for yourself. Oh, yeah, and eat Hamantashen. Thank you.
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Colleagues, I'd like to read a tribute real quick and then explain a little bit about it. The Senate and House of Representatives convened in the second session of the 74th General Assembly hereby extends its heartiest congratulations and commendation to the Leadership Pueblo Class of 2023 and the Greater Pueblo Chamber of Commerce. Members of the Colorado General Assembly would like to recognize the hard work of the Leadership Pueblo Class of 2023 and the Greater Pueblo Chamber of Commerce in organizing Pueblo Flag Day on March 22nd. The first annual Pueblo Flag Day recognizes the 153rd anniversary of Pueblo's incorporation as a city and gives Puebloans an opportunity to make a powerful statement of pride, unity, and support of Pueblo. We thank the Greater Pueblo Chamber of Commerce for their tireless work in support of this event and look forward to celebrating Pueblo Flag Day for years to come on request of Senator Nick Henriksen and Representatives Matthew Martinez, Tisha Morrow, and Ty Winter. If you don't live in southern Colorado, you might not have noticed, but there's been, unfortunately, a slew of pages on social media sites. We in this business and in this chamber know that social media is not always the kindest of places or the most accurate of places. Social media is not real life. And there's been a slew of social media pages that come from other parts of the state that exist to sort of look down on Pueblo. And this was something that frustrated and disappointed some of the leadership in our community, members of our community. And Pueblo Flag Day was a thought that came out of this year's Leadership Pueblo class of 2023 as a way to rally around the pride that we have as a city. And there is extraordinary pride in our city. I am darn proud to call Pueblo home. Pueblo is where I chose to make my home. When I got out of the military, I could go back to where I grew up. I could have gone anywhere. I chose Pueblo. It's one of the best choices I made coming out of the military. And what I like to say, with the industry that we have going on, with the history of Pueblo, it was one of the founding locations of our state, one of the first permanently inhabited places of our state, an international border for a long time. Pueblo is the birthplace of Colorado, and since then, we have built this state, and I am proud to say that I'm from the part of the state that built this state. And Mr. President, thank you for the time.
Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've conferred with the minority leader and the majority leader and request to be excused next Tuesday, the 26th.
Senator Simpson will be excused on the 26th. Senator Mickelson-Janae.
Thank you, Mr. President. I forgot to mention today is Colorado Cancer Caucus Day, and it's a very special cancer caucus. We're joining together with the CLAW Caucus. We're going to hear from Dr. Susanna Lana, who is the interim director of the Flint Animal Cancer Center at Colorado State University, about cancer in animals. So if you can join us, it's today at noon in Senate Committee Room 354, and there's a Zoom link, and this is on your desks if you'd like more information.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Colleagues, today is the 3-year anniversary of the Boulder grocery store massacre, in which 9 people were murdered and 1 died in the line of duty that day. It happened during session. I don't know if some of you were here working while it was going on. I know I was at home when it went and happened, but we were all back here the next day and had to take action and process all of it. And I was reminded then of the stories that I heard while Columbine was happening, and they were in session again at that time, and then the days and the weeks following, how they took action to address what had happened. And so, again, I woke up this morning with a feeling. I wasn't sure what it was, and certainly then when I looked at the calendar, I knew that's what it was. So I just wanted to make sure that we remembered them. It's also the 1-year anniversary of the East High shooting, the second East High shooting, in which a couple of teachers were shot, and then a young man ran out and went to the mountains, and later on ended up killing himself. So his family and everybody who was impacted are the same as everybody else was. And I just wanted to let all those people know that I'm still thinking about them. Thank you.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I want to, and this will be the first of several, I want to remind you and invite you, next Wednesday will be our second legislative nuclear caucus meeting. It will be over across the street in room 603. You're invited, or send your aides. We will have the Chief Executive Officer of Flibe Energy, which is on the cutting edge of the new technology of what's going on in the nuclear energy industry. I would encourage you to attend. There will be food, and this gentleman is flying in from Huntsville, Alabama. He has forgotten more about nuclear energy than all of us combined will ever remember. So I hope that some of you will attend. I'll remind you again next Monday, Tuesday, and maybe and Wednesday. But if you can make it, please let me know if you're interested, so we can order the appropriate amount of food and beverage. It's the bipartisan. You're all invited. Of course, everybody can't attend. We wouldn't have room. But for those of you who would like to learn a little bit more about the exciting new advances in nuclear technology, I encourage you to attend. Thank you.
Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I wanted to come up. Could I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. Follow up on Ag Week and Senator Pelton talking about Ag Week. I do want to give a shout out to the Logan County Cattlewomen's for probably the best meal I've had this session down here in Denver last night. So a big shout out to them. And then, as promised, every Friday, Perry Will Friday, I offer Perry's Pearls of Wisdom. And my pearl of wisdom today is quiet your mind and your soul will speak. Thank you.
Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I confirmed with the minority leader and the majority leader to be absent on April 5th, Friday, April 5th, 2024.
Senator Pelton will be marked as excused on April 5th. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate recess until 11 a.m. this morning. Colleagues, just got to read some stuff across the desk. Welcome to hang out if you want. Otherwise, that's it.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will recess until 11 a.m. today.